We are live. How is everybody doing? Monday Night Raw has just gone off the air on the USA Network or on BT Sport over here in the United Kingdom. A really interesting show, shall we say. First of all, what I do want to say is that I did something a little bit different for Raw this week. Because like I said, I've wanted to start doing these sort of post-show reaction streams kind of things. We do them for pay-per-views. We do them for instance, we did it for WrestleMania Backlash yesterday. We did it for Impact Under Siege on Saturday. And I don't know if I'm going to necessarily do this for every single show. I mean, I do have to keep my sanity, I think, a little bit. But I do want to do them for the likes of Raw, probably SmackDown. Don't know how I feel about doing them for Dynamite on Wednesdays. It depends how you guys really feel. If you guys enjoy this kind of thing, then that's what we'll do. That's what we'll do. What I will say, though, when it comes to tonight's show is I did something a little bit different in that I didn't start watching Monday Night Raw until maybe the second hour. So obviously I was DVRing it. I was Sky Q over here in the United Kingdom, so I could fast forward through the adverts. It makes the show. I mean, obviously, you know when you watch it the next day sometimes and you've recorded it and you can watch through it the next day, obviously speeding through the adverts makes it easier. But live, when it's happening, the ability to fast forward through the adverts does make the viewing experience at least a little bit more pleasurable. Not loads, of course, but a little bit. It makes it a little bit more pleasurable. So overall, yeah. I mean, when it comes to Monday Night Raw, I mean, Desmond Allen's in the chat. How you doing, Desmond? He says, OMG, never seen a show that was worse. That's the problem with Raw, isn't it? That's the problem with Raw. It's just, fundamentally, it's a tough show to watch. Like, it's a really tough show to watch. And to be honest, this is the crazy thing about Raw this week, is that in the grand scheme of things, this wasn't necessarily a terrible edition of Monday Night Raw. For Raw, this wasn't necessarily an awful show. I have my massive issues with the main event, I must say, and I can understand people. I can really understand people that watch that show for 3 hours, coming out of it going, I've just wasted 3 hours sticking around for something that obviously they never had any intention on delivering. And I have a massive problem with that. We'll get to that though. So if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner, smash a like on the like button as well. I would say smash a like on the like button if you enjoyed Monday Night Raw, but I don't know whether to say that because that means then nobody will like it. Look, in the grand scheme of things, like I said, overall wasn't actually a bad show. Wasn't actually a terrible show for Raw standards. I mean, maybe I'm being too kind and generous there. For Raw standards, it wasn't terrible. The issue is, like I said, they promised something throughout the entire show that they knew they weren't going to deliver. And that's my problem with it. That's my problem there. Anyway, let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. So the show starts off, Bobby Lashley, MVP, talking about the victory from WrestleMania Backlash, all that kind of stuff, all the stuff you would expect from a post-pay-per-view edition of Monday Night Raw with the WWE Champion. And then MVP announces that obviously they're going to move on from Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman, and tonight we're going to get an open challenge. Now, I will use my wording carefully here, because MVP said that there was going to be an open challenge for the WWE Championship. No, he didn't. He didn't say there was going to be... This is the thing. They said it was going to be an open challenge, and then we assumed that WWE put the heat onto us, by the way, saying that it was going to be an open challenge, and then throughout the entirety of the night, we're told, this isn't the audience that assumed this, we are told by WWE, by the graphics, by the announcers, by everyone, we are told it is for the WWE Championship. It is an open challenge for the WWE Championship. That's what they said. That's what they said. Now, MVP might not have said it, but WWE did. That's what they said. So Bobby Lashley's going, okay, he's crowing about this. Out comes Drew McIntyre, and he says that he'll accept the open challenge to face Bobby Lashley tonight for the WWE Championship. He wants another shot at the WWE Championship. Okay. And then MVP goes, well, you didn't let me finish. It's an open challenge that Bobby Lashley is going to be facing tonight. Didn't mention anything about the WWE Championship, but he says it's going to be an open challenge, and it's an open challenge to anyone that isn't Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman, because Bobby Lashley beat them last night, so they should go to the back of the line. Now, what I will say about this, and this is a bit of a pet peeve of mine anyway, but this has been done for years in WWE. John Cena used to be the worst for this. He used to be absolute worst for this. So Drew McIntyre, in the grand scheme of things, Drew McIntyre should be at the back of the line, right? He should be at the back of the line. He lost twice. I know he didn't get pinned last night. I get that. But he didn't submit at WrestleMania. And they can try and dance around the subject like they want. They can say, well, he didn't technically submit at WrestleMania. He passed out. And they can talk about it as, well, he didn't get pinned at WrestleMania Backlash and all that kind of stuff. In reality, he lost twice. And John Cena used to do this all the time. John Cena used to lose the WWE Championship or lose a match for the WWE Championship. Then he'd come out the next night going, I want another shot. Well, what right do you have to be going for another shot? I mean, MVP's not technically wrong there by going, no, you lost twice. I know you used to be WWE Champion, and in your 2 reigns, you were nearly WWE Champion for like a year. But let's be honest. I mean, what have you earned? What have you earned to be WWE Champion? To have the opportunity to have another chance at the WWE Championship. You lost twice. Get over it. Back of the line. So the segment ends. I mean, Bobby Lashley also came out with women, and that was really awkward. I mean, they were really awkward. It was just a really odd and opening segment. And then it ends with Drew McIntyre punching Bobby Lashley in the face. And then that was it. And I was like, well, I'm not sure what that did for Bobby Lashley at all. But you go, well, it set the scene. It set the scene for the remainder of the show that we were going to get this WWE Championship Open Challenge. Now, MVP might not have said that, but WWE did. The announcers said it. The graphic showed it. They showed that graphic on this show, hyping up the WWE Championship Open Challenge maybe 10 times. So to try and imply to us as an audience, to try and imply that it was, maybe we got carried away, maybe we just assumed things. No, you told us. MVP might not have told us, but WWE did. Don't try and imply that, you just let your minds get carried away. Our minds didn't get carried away. WWE, you told us. You told us this. Anyway, I mean, we'll get onto that at the end of it, because, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I'm surprised by some of the reaction on social media to this. So the first match is AJ Styles versus Elias. Of course, Elias had Jackson Riker. AJ Styles had Omos in his corner. And again, this is what I'm mentioning about tonight on Raw. It wasn't necessarily a bad show. I would say the majority of matches that they had on the show tonight were pretty good. In terms of matches, AJ Styles versus Elias was a good TV match. I enjoyed it. It had good pacing. But what happens? We don't get a finish. This is the problem with Monday Night Raw and just WWE television in general. You're having a good match, you're going, oh, great. AJ Styles realistically should win the match, right? It's AJ Styles. But what do? A DQ finish. AJ Styles is on the apron, looking like he's going to set up for a phenomenal forearm. Jackson Riker pulls AJ Styles down, hits him on the apron, disqualification. And every time they do something like this, WWE, every time they are going through a match and it's a good match and then they go to a DQ finish, you immediately go, that is so lame. It's just an eye roller, because can they not think of anything more creative? And I know you have to look at it as, well, they're trying to tell stories here, and there might be a bit more of a progression at some point, and we might be going to a different direction. I think it's pretty apparent that the feud now for the Raw Tag Team Championships, I guess, looks to be AJ Styles and Omos versus Jackson Riker and Elias. I don't have a problem with that. I think as a Tag Team Championship feud, that's interesting. We haven't seen that before on WWE television. 2 good tag teams. I don't have a problem with that. With 4 relatively, high established guys on the show, I don't have a problem with that at all. I thought it was slightly confusing in the sense that now is AJ Styles and Omos, are they baby faces? I mean, they were teaming up with the heels last week. They were teaming up with Jackson Riker and Elias last week. So they're teaming up, but now they were certainly being positioned as the baby faces. So Styles and Omos, I guess, have done a babyface turn off camera in the space of 7 days. That's what it certainly felt like. So after the disqualification, you've got Jackson Riker and Elias attacking AJ Styles. Omos chases off Jackson Riker, but then it allows Elias to attack AJ Styles. Omos comes back and chases off Elias. And I was kind of looking at that thinking, this is AJ Styles that is a multiple-time WWE World Heavyweight Champion. He is a Grand Slam champion. He became a Grand Slam champion in just 5 years, by the way. I mean, incredibly impressive. He's a Grand Slam champion, and he's incapable of defending himself at this point. I mean, just incapable of defending himself. I mean, I know he's got Omos as his sort of bodyguard or associate, whatever they want to call him. But, I mean, really, he can't, I guess he just can't defend himself anymore. If he doesn't have Omos watching his back, everyone could just beat the hell out of him. That just felt a little bit odd, didn't it? But what I will say about Omos is there's no doubt the guy's money. There's no doubt the guy's money, even if he can't work. And people can criticize him and say, oh, his matches so far, they've been booked to his strengths. Well, why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't they be? And people can say, oh, he's green, he might not be the best worker. It really, in the grand scheme of things at the moment, doesn't matter if Omos is this amazing worker or not, because throughout the entirety of his career, however long it lasts, he is an attraction. That is his position. He is going to be an attraction. That is it. That is it. And again, would it be beneficial for the longevity of his career if he turns into a great worker? Sure. But historically, that's tough. We haven't seen many guys that are 7'3" and unbelievable workers, or however tall Omos is, 7'3", 7'4", whatever. It's a very select few guys that are in that category of being, walking, living, breathing giants, or very, very tall guys that are good workers. I mean, you can count them on one hand. The Big Show, Andre the Giant. I mean, the Undertaker's not 7 foot. Kane's not 7 foot. I mean, Kevin Nash, he's not. He's close to 7 foot. I mean, but again, the guys that are that big, it's tough. And Omos doesn't need to be a great worker yet. At the moment, he is an attraction, and it's WWE's prerogative to book him as an attraction, to book him and hide any negatives, which I'm sure there are. It's obvious that there are. It's obvious that he's green in the ring. It's very obvious. But WWE, they recognize this guy's money. He's an attraction. He does have this presence about him. Even when he's just standing there at ringside with a Raw Tag Team Championship over his shoulder, it's obvious the guy's money. The guy is absolute money. And if he does become a good worker, I mean, then WWE's got something very special on their hands. Very special. And it does remind me of the Shawn Michaels Diesel dynamic. Not so much in the case of the small guy and the little guy and all that kind of stuff. More so in the sense that there is the small guy, or the smaller guy, is arguably one of the best in-ring performers of his generation. One of the best in-ring performers of all time, AJ Styles. He just is that good. And if Omos can learn a fraction of what AJ Styles knows and can do by osmosis, then he's going to be fine. And that's kind of the Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels dynamic that I sort of see in them. So I think that we're going towards Styles and Omos versus Elias and Riker. For the Raw Tag Team Championships, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we have this next week. You can kind of see where that one's going. But again, I don't have a problem with that. And the tag team division on Raw is pretty stacked at this point, isn't it? Think of the teams that they've got. I mean, for a long, long time, for the longest time, WWE's tag team scene on Raw or SmackDown is terrible. It still is not great on SmackDown, to be honest, even though you've got the Mysterios as the tag team champions now. But in the grand scheme of things on Raw, you've got AJ Styles and Omos, you've got Elias and Jackson Ryker, you've got RK Bro, you've got New Day, you've got Mason T-Bar, you've got, the list can go on and on. The Viking Raiders. I mean, that's a pretty stacked tag team division. And to be honest, Raw's a 3-hour show. They should have a really stacked tag team division. They should focus on things like tag team wrestling, because Lord knows they need to fill up the time on Monday nights. So why not invest in some good tag teams? The solution to Raw is obviously not having it be 3 hours, and there's lots of other fixes. But you've got to have the depth in the roster to be able to pull this show off. So I have no problem with the tag team division being having this depth to it. I think that's quite good. So next we had a backstage segment with RK Bro and the New Day, in that Riddle had convinced the New Day to come meet him for one reason. He then convinced Randy Orton to meet him as well, saying that Adam Pearce wanted to speak to Randy Orton and all that kind of stuff. And then Riddle had tried to get the two to apologize to each other because, of course, last week Randy Orton RKO'd the New Day after they teamed with him and that stuff. To be honest, I'm really conflicted. I'm really conflicted on the whole RK Bro thing, because Riddle, this version of Riddle, this character that has been created on Monday Night Raw, not Matt Riddle from NXT, but this version of Riddle that is on Raw, is so annoying. You cannot convince me this guy is a babyface, because he is so annoying. I mean, I can never relate to Randy Orton so much to when Riddle's around him, that Randy Orton just looks so PO'd and wants to just punch him in the face. I think everyone watching at home, when they see Riddle, is like that, with his scooter and wearing the Evel Knievel stuff, is, oh my God, talking about just weirdness. He's so annoying. He's the most anti-babyface ever. But I'm conflicted because it's very apparent, isn't it? It's really apparent. Riddle and Randy Orton have some major, major chemistry. They really do. They have some major chemistry. And Randy Orton and Kofi Kingston start sort of going off at each other, and they challenge each other to a match later on tonight. Kofi Kingston references their 2009 feud and then their 2019 feud, and I was waiting for Randy Orton to call him stupid and all that kind of stuff. It was good backstage promo. Again, there's no doubt in my mind that Randy Orton and Riddle, they've got chemistry. They do have chemistry, and it is almost the perfect yin to the yang. It almost makes Riddle tolerable, doesn't it? In the same vein that Riddle, as this character or this version of whatever he is on Raw, is so annoying and overbearing. Once Randy Orton comes into the scene, his negativity or his just seriousness kind of just balances it out, and then suddenly Riddle becomes tolerable. Like I said, it's almost the perfect yin to the yang. It's any comedic, double act. You've got to have the straight guy. You've got to have the guy that does play things straight and serious, and that's why it works. So at the end of it, Riddle zips his mouth and then throws away the key. They are entertaining. They are absolutely entertaining. There's no doubt about that. So next we have Alexa Bliss. She's doing another version of Alexa Bliss's Playground. She's there with Lily, and she's got on as her guests this time the Women's Tag Team Champions Tamina and Natalya. And whenever I see the whole Alexa Bliss and Lily thing at the moment, because of course Bray Wyatt, we haven't really seen him since the post WrestleMania edition of Monday Night Raw. I watch this and I just be like, Bray Wyatt must be livid when he's watching this, because his gimmick's just been stolen at this point. This guy created the Firefly Funhouse. This guy created all this stuff. The split personality character of having the sort of children's entertainer, the sort of light-hearted children's entertainer, and then the darker version of the Fiend. This is his gimmick. And Alexa Bliss has split away from Bray Wyatt, but she's still doing his gimmick. And Alexa Bliss is on Raw and Bray Wyatt isn't. And I was looking at this. I was going, well, that must be that must be so, I don't know, frustrating to him. Going, wait a minute, I came up with this. I'm not on television. She is. The gimmick was stolen. Anyway, so she's got on Natalya and Tamina for this Alexa Bliss's Playground segment, and I thought it was funny in that Natalya, I mean, she did kind of later on in the segment, but Natalya just didn't look freaked out. So they're asking these weird questions, Alexa Bliss, and you've got another swing which has got a doll on it with weird chiclet teeth, and Tamina's just, and Natalya's just Tamina's standing there like looking around, going, "This is weird." Natalya's going, "Yeah, we're really happy to be the Women's Tag Team Champions. It's Tamina's first championship in WWE. I couldn't be prouder of her." You know the way like Natalya talks, where it's like incredibly scripted and it's sort of like that. Yeah, we were so happy. It's like, okay. But she wasn't scared at all. She wasn't freaked out at all. And I was like, read the room, Natty. Read the room. You're meant to be freaked out here. I mean, Tamina did. I mean, I don't know what that says about Natalya. Very odd. And Alexa Bliss then asks them, what are your favourite colours? And Natalya goes pink, because I get Bret Hart, right? The Hart Foundation, all that kind of stuff. And then Tamina says black and blue, because that's what I'm going to beat you if you do any of your weirdness. And I thought, that's good. That's good. Always insult the person who you know is crazy and at WrestleMania had black stuff dripping all over her, can shoot fire out of the ring post, is talking to an imaginary, well, it's not an imaginary, but a stuffed doll who she thinks that can talk. Yeah, that's really good to insult that kind of person. Were you crazy? I mean, well, why was that? I mean, talk about a stupid babyface. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Very, very odd. Very odd. Let's check in the chat here. Desmond Allen says, what was your favorite part? When it ended. Desmond Allen says, my problem is that we have a few rematches. He also says, what channel does Impact come on? Well, it depends where you are. Obviously, in the United States, it's on Access TV. Around the world, it can be on Twitch or it could be on a variety of things. Die says, Bobby Lashley can be a very awkward actor. That's true. That's why he's been paired with MVP. Jan Brown said, Riddle is to Orton what United fans are to the Glazers. They just see us as a nuisance like Orton does with Riddle. It's a good analogy. Franklin Chanaba says hi. I've said your name there, Franklin. So the next match was Angel Garza versus Drew Gulak. This is the thing they've been doing on Raw over the course of the last few weeks. And as soon as I saw Angel Garza and I realized that it was going to be facing Drew Gulak, my first thought was, oh my God, we're going to see the rose up the backside again. Because that's what they did a couple of weeks ago. Angel Garza shoved a rose. I mean, not graphically, literally. I mean, this is still PG television. It's still PG television. I mean, they can't literally, I mean, that would be a stretch too far. I mean, that would be setting the business back 30 years. I mean, a rose up there, that would not be good. But my first thought was, oh, God, we're going to see the rose up the bum again. But I kind of, and when I saw this, I feel for Drew Gulak, I do. And again, you have to weigh these things up. But this was a guy in Drew Gulak that last year, prior to the pandemic, but even after the pandemic, he was facing Daniel Bryan. The match that Drew Gulak had with Daniel Bryan at Elimination Chamber in Philadelphia, it was one of the, obviously, Elimination Chamber was the last pay-per-view event, wasn't it, before the pandemic really hit? So that last event with big crowds there. Opening that show was Daniel Bryan versus Drew Gulak, and it was a great match. It was a great match. And at that time, everyone went, finally, Drew Gulak, as talented as everyone knows he is, real strong technical wrestler. Everyone went, finally, he's going to get, given something in WWE. This is exciting. This was a guy that was facing Daniel Bryan last year. And then only a couple of months later, Drew Gulak's contract expired. Do you remember that story last year? He's facing Daniel Bryan on television, then he's teaming up with him, and he's part of like a quasi-faction with Daniel Bryan, or a team with him as Daniel Bryan's trainer, and then his contract expired. Everyone went, oh my God. After all of this, Drew Gulak's contract expired, and he gets re-signed. His contract lapsed, but he got re-signed, I guess, for more money, and everyone went, good for Drew Gulak. His contract expired, and he got more money, good for him. And it's kind of like, well, you can't be careful what you wish for, because he has re-signed with WWE. Then it was almost as if immediately, once he re-signed with WWE, then again he starts chasing the 24/7 championship, starts getting involved in comedy segments and all this kind of stuff. But you do have to look at it on the other side of things. I'm sure he gets paid reasonably well. Not that money's everything, but the one thing I will say about Drew Gulak is, from what I've heard and all of these reports that are out there, he is very well liked and very well respected backstage by a variety of, obviously, superstars, officials, and most importantly, Vince McMahon. There's reports out there that he's highly thought of Vince McMahon. He's obviously was involved in the training of like Bad Bunny for WrestleMania. When they were doing that whole big man class at the Performance Center, Drew Gulak was teaching that class. He's highly thought about, and it's obviously that Vince McMahon thinks for a variety of different talents that if they need extra work or they need to train or they need to ever, he kind of goes, I'll go to Drew Gulak. He knows what he's doing, which is a huge compliment. It's a huge compliment. And what do you get for that compliment? You get a rose up your bum and in your mouth. Not at the same time. That's disgusting, but that's what you get. So this whole thing is, I guess, about featuring Angel Garza more, and I can get behind that. I can. During the match, though, this was funny that Garza did a kind of reverse slingshot suplex, but Gulak landed on his feet when he obviously wasn't meant to land on his feet, so he just took the bump anyway, which was quite odd. But then Angel Garza gets the winner. He hits the wing clipper, and that's it. I mean, Gulak got zero offense in. I mean, it was a squash match. There's no other way to describe it. It was a squash match. It was meant to feature Angel Garza, and again, that's not a bad thing. Making new stars on Raw, but the only problem is, I would say with that is, whenever you try and see WWE make new stars or anything like that, you just can't trust them, because let's just see if Vince McMahon doesn't lose interest in 3 weeks like he tends to do. 3 weeks' time, Angel Garza could be back on main event wrestling Drew Gulak once again, but it means nothing. It means nothing. So this week, instead of shoving the rose up the behind, he shoves the rose down the throats of Drew Gulak, which is what he promised to do. And I guess that's Angel Garza's new gimmick. He gets a rose and then he shoves it in an orifice of a wrestler, whether it's mouth, bum, ear, eye. I mean, it's an odd gimmick, but we'll see where it goes. So we then have a backstage segment with R-Truth. He's there closing his eyes. He's the 24/7 champion. I'd kind of forgot the 24/7 championship was a thing. And when I remembered it was a thing, I sighed and went, oh yeah, that's a shame. Because I don't think anyone's cared about the 24/7 championship for a long, long time at this point. But anyway, so R-Truth's there, and he's saying that I've got to be careful because I don't want anyone to come after me for the open challenge tonight for the 24/7 championship. And Kevin Patrick says, no, that's Bobby Lashley. That's not for the 24/7 championship. And then R-Truth did a Ricky Bobby reference, which I enjoyed because I'm a big Will Ferrell fan. I'm a fan of Talladega Nights, so I enjoyed that. That was the most entertaining thing of the segment. And then, out of nowhere, R-Truth gets hit with the most devastating finisher in WWE today. I mean, this move is... it can be a career ender To be honest, it's the most devastating move. Nobody kicks out of it. It's more protected than the F5, than the Spear, than the Claymore. Any finisher you can think of at the end of days. Nobody kicks out of this finisher. R-Truth gets hit with the devastating schoolboy roll-up. I mean, I'm surprised it's touch and go. It was really touch and go. But he gets rolled up with a devastating schoolboy roll-up by Akira Tozawa, and Akira Tozawa is the new 24/7 champion. Literally, as I was watching, that was my reaction. Who cares? Who cares? The 24/7 championship was brought in 2019. It was a USA Network initiative because they wanted ratings and they wanted spontaneity on the show. 2 years of spontaneity. After 2 years, it's no longer spontaneous anymore. It isn't. There's nothing off the cuff about it. There's nothing that feels radical about it. The only thing that the 24/7 championship benefited from is on social media. It was done well because they used to tape these segments, put them on social media, and then people used to watch them on Twitter, talk about them on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook or whatever. And WWE likes that because they like social media and they like the social media metrics that came with it. They didn't have a problem with that, and that's admirable and that makes sense from a social media point of view. It is 2021, but they can't even do that now because they can't go out into random places. They can't have celebrities and they can't do all this kind of stuff because they're in the pandemic. So the pandemic's essentially killed off the 24/7 championship, and that's not a bad thing. It's over. It was nice while it lasted. It had a good honeymoon period of about 3 weeks, and then nobody cares anymore. The only reason to make people care about the 24/7 championship is if you actually put it on people that mattered. No disrespect to R-Truth, but it's over. It's over. Get rid of it. Nobody cares. So next up, we had Randy Orton versus Kofi Kingston. One thing I will say, and I mentioned this when I spoke about the RK Bro tag team a couple of minutes ago, is that when Randy Orton made his entrance, when he makes his entrance with Riddle, it's pretty great. And whilst I'm not a fan, like I said, of the Riddle babyface character, I'm not. But Orton making his entrance with Riddle, it is pretty great. Because he just at any second looks like he's about to just snap and just murder Riddle. He really does. And Riddle, to be fair, is kind of like all of us. If you as a WWE fan were told, look, Randy Orton's going to make his entrance, you can walk out with him. You can walk out with Randy Orton. You can walk down to the ring, and while he does his pose, you can stand behind him. You can get in the ring with him. You would do exactly what Riddle did. You would just start marking out. That's what Riddle does here. He just marks out. He's singing, he's dancing, he's doing the Randy Orton pose, he's all this kind of stuff, he's pointing at him. It is pretty great. It is pretty great. And again, that's the magic of this RK Bro tag team, is that Riddle, who is this insufferable babyface that really you can't stand and really is just so frustrating, but mixed in with the seriousness and just the pure contempt of Randy Orton, it makes him bearable because you relate to both. You can relate to Riddle marking out about being paired with Randy Orton, but you can also really relate to Randy Orton being really PO'd with Riddle. It makes sense. It makes sense. It's very relatable. So I enjoyed that. We go to a break, and as we come back, we get another Eva Marie vignette where she's talking about that she was a supermodel, but now I want to be a super role model. And it kind of felt like when I was watching this going, there's no way she's coming back to be a wrestler. It feels like when she's talking about being a role model and talking about trying to help people and convince people, that sounds like a manager. That sounds like managing someone or trying to improve them or trying to be a coach, if you will. She says that everyone wants the perfect picture, but it takes a lot of bad ones to get there. And I know that some people have thought that are WWE positioning her as a babyface. They might be. But when I watch this vignette, and maybe this is just because of my general feeling to Monday Night Raw in general, but when I'm watching this vignette, I'm saying there is no way she's a babyface. There is no way she is a babyface. It just feels like a heel, and maybe they're trying to position her as one. But for me, as an audience member or a viewer watching this, I'm looking at this going, she must be a heel. Because, who really would care? Who really would care? Or who really would cheer her? Because nobody will. And it's worth remembering that in July, it hasn't been officially announced yet, but in July, fans are returning. And you can't tell me that an arena, however many people are going to be there, they are not going to cheer Eva Marie. Even if WWE positions her as a babyface, they are not going to cheer her. They are just not going to do it. Especially with her going, I'm a role model. I used to be a supermodel, but now I'm a role model, and I want to improve you and I want to help you. The fans will boo her out the building. And if that's the intention of WWE, that's great, because it's a great character. It works. But if they're positioning her as a babyface, it's the New Day all over again. It's when they tried to turn Lana babyface and everyone just dumped all over that. It's the same thing. So next up we have Randy Orton versus Kofi Kingston. It was an okay match, what you would expect, nothing too much to write home about, but it was the finish that kind of bothered me here. So the finish is that Xavier Woods is at ringside, he distracts Randy Orton with a trombone, and Kofi Kingston rolls him up and gets the victory. Another roll-up finish, because Raw is roll-up, as I mentioned, and this is this is a good point because it plays into the main event. It plays into the ending of the show as well. So he gets distracted and then he gets rolled up. Randy Orton is a 14-time WWE World Heavyweight Champion, 14 times. And he got distracted by a trombone. The same trombone that Xavier Woods uses every single week on Raw. He has used the trombone for 6 years now on WWE television, all the time. And for 6 years, when he's used the trombone, when he's been playing the trombone at ringside, nobody gets distracted. So why suddenly this week did Randy Orton get distracted by a trombone? There was no logic in that finish at all. A trombone he uses every week. Just such a lame finish. I mean, it was a big win for Kingston. In retrospect, now we can kind of understand why he got it, because he had to build up for the main event. But, I mean, talk about a big night for Kingston. I mean, not only did he pin Randy Orton, he pinned the WWE Champion. It's not going to mean anything. Kofi Kingston's not going to become the WWE Champion next week, but, a big moment, a big win. Randy Orton was seething after the match. And Riddle was kind of angry as well after the match. Riddle didn't look happy. Randy Orton once again looked like they do this very well, WWE, in that there's a couple of camera angles where Randy Orton is just lurking in the background of Riddle. And you can see that he's bubbling up. He is just bubbling up. And one day, he is just going to snap. He's going to snap and he's going to drop Riddle and he's going to go crazy. And he's bubbling up and he decides to leave. He's fuming. He decides to leave. And even Riddle gets a little bit angry. Riddle shoves Xavier Woods to the floor. And it kind of felt like, whoa, this sort of fun-loving, jovial kind of character, Riddle, is he turning heel now? Is he angry with the New Day, shoving him to the floor? Is that a heel turn? So who knows? I kind of felt coming out of this that this was leading to an RK Bro versus New Day feud. Regardless of what happened in the main event, I still do think that's the case, even though Kofi Kingston beat Bobby Lashley later on in the show, and we probably will get Lashley versus Kingston for the WWE Championship next week. That isn't going to happen at Hell in a Cell. I'm very convinced of that. I would think that we're probably going to get RK Bro versus the New Day as a feud heading into Hell in a Cell. And next week, when Kofi Kingston inevitably does face Bobby Lashley, Randy Orton and Matt Riddle play into that. That's what I think is the most likely outcome there. So we go to a backstage segment with Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. They're backstage with Lana and Naomi and Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose. Again, really, who cares about that? Charlotte Flair, though, she's there. She comes in. She's wearing a Cruella DeVille gear, which is great, by the way. Big fan of 101 Dalmatians. And for a second there, I thought, is after what happened last night at WrestleMania Backlash, Charlotte Flair lost. She didn't take the pinfall in the Rhea Ripley Raw Women's Championship match, but she lost. I thought, is Charlotte Flair going to be in the Women's Tag Team Championship picture? Wouldn't have a problem with that. To be honest, I would kind of prefer that. Charlotte Flair is involved in the Women's Tag Team picture as opposed to the Raw Championship picture. That's not a problem. No, she is. She is. And she comes in and says to Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville, well, I didn't get pinned last night, so I want an opportunity at the Raw Women's Championship. And Adam Pearce, rightfully so, says, well, whilst you didn't get pinned last night, you didn't win the match, so what reason do you have to have an opportunity at the Raw Women's Championship? Which is a good point. It's good logic. The only problem is Drew McIntyre was doing the exact same thing at the start of the show, and people were all for it. Where is the logic there? Where is the double standard? You're saying to Charlotte Flair here, you can't have an opportunity at the Raw Women's Championship because you lost last night, but for Drew McIntyre earlier on in the show on the male side of things, totally fine. Where's the logic? Double standard. Go with one or the other. And the right one is you lost last night, back of the line. Wins and losses need to mean something. And they don't. So Rhea Ripley comes in and she starts saying, well, because they set up a match where it's going to be Charlotte Flair versus Asuka, and not that it's another one contender, but they say you can earn your way possibly to another opportunity in the future. Rhea Ripley comes in and says, I'll be keeping an eye on the match. And bless Rhea Ripley. I'm a fan of Rhea Ripley. I'm a huge fan of her look and her work. NXT, she was great. She is a very promising superstar. She's still very young, and she's got a ton of potential. She's got a great look and a great future. But man, her promos on Raw have sucked. I mean, they have been awful. And it's not her fault. I don't think it's necessarily her fault. I do think there needs to be some improvement from her point of view. I've heard, and she said that she's taking acting classes to help improve her acting on Raw, and I guess her promo delivery and all this kind of stuff. But her promos are not good. They're not, and they just feel very, very scripted and certainly not natural in the slightest. You know, like when you're watching a play or you're watching just a television program and you're very cognizant of what you are watching right now. Someone is reciting lines. There's a difference between someone acting and it feels like everything they're saying is coming spontaneous to them. Rhea Ripley, it couldn't be more opposite. You're watching her going, I know you are remembering lines right now. It feels like you are reciting a script in front of me. I'm very aware that this is acting. And that's kind of the problem here. It's bad acting, it feels like. So, obviously, I think the intention here is that we're going to get Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair again, possibly at Hell in a Cell. That feels apparent, even though, obviously, later on in the show, Asuka gets the victory. So next, we have the Women's Tag Team Championship match. It's a rematch from SmackDown on Friday. It's Natalya and Tamina defending the Women's Tag Team Championships against Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. So they're having the match. It is what it is. I mean, my concern, I never felt at any point we were going to have Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler win. At least I hope not. It's the rematch culture in WWE Strikes Again. Remember that time a couple of years ago? We're no longer doing rematches. If you lose the championship, no rematch. We're not doing any more rematches. Well, we already had a couple on this show. And we've already had people proposition for rematches. And this is a rematch directly from SmackDown on Friday. So that whole no rematch thing, where does that come from? They've just given up on that again. Yet another WWE incentive that just disappears. Anyway, in the closing moments of the match, Alexa Bliss, she appears on the ramp because, of course, she did have the segment earlier on in the show with Natalya and Tamina. She appears on the ramp. She's there, and then fire, like Kane, shoots up from the ring post, nearly hits Reginald at ringside. Wouldn't have been a bad thing. They then hit the heart attack on Shayna Baszler, do Natalya and Tamina, and get the victory. Shayna Baszler, once again, eats a pin, which is so depressing, considering that this was a superstar in NXT. She was champion for something like 500 days or something ridiculous. She had a huge undefeated streak and was one of the most protected superstars in NXT history, up there with Asuka, who of course never lost. But Shayna was so protective, nobody could beat her. She was dominant, and yet she's on the main roster now, and all she does is eat pinfalls. If it's a tag team match that involves Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, and Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler lose, Shayna Baszler gets pinned, because heaven forbid Nia Jax takes a pinfall, because she's this irresistible force. She's this huge, dominating female, so she can't get pinned. It's got to be Shayna Baszler. And whilst you can say that this tag team kept Shayna Baszler on television, and she's had 2 Women's Tag Team Championship reigns and all this kind of stuff, for her win-loss record, it's not been great, because if they lose, it's Shayna taking the pinfall every single time. And again, it's just so sad, isn't it, that these characters that you get attached to in NXT because they're so great or because they're booked this certain way. Triple H must, I mean, I'm glad that he hasn't got any hair anymore, because it would have been ripped out at this point by seeing these characters he invested so much time and creative into just getting pinned on Raw over and over again and changed. You must think, why do I bother? Honestly, why do I bother? So after the match, whilst Natalya and Tamina are celebrating, you've got Alexa Bliss's laugh playing over and over again, this laughter track, in the same way that Bray Wyatt, as I mentioned, it's Alexa Bliss just using Bray Wyatt's gimmick. Bray Wyatt's laughter used to sort of play over and over and over. Same thing happens with Alexa Bliss. But for some reason with Alexa Bliss, when it happened, I mean, the Bray Wyatt one, it's annoying. I mean, it's the laughter over and over is creepy initially, but then once you do it like 5 or 6 times, then it goes from creepy to just being annoying. Like, can someone turn that off? You know, it's like when your alarm goes off, but you're outside the room and you've got to run to go turn it back off. And then at that point, it's just annoying. Or when your alarm's, you know, your phone or your alarm goes off next to the, when you wake up in the morning, you go to turn it off and you knock it under your bed, and all it does is keep ringing and ringing and mocking you. It kind of felt like that. It's like just someone just turn it off, honestly. So my concern is, and this is kind of a very concerning thought here when it comes to Alexa Bliss getting involved in the women's tag team title matches. Please, and if WWE, if anyone, I'm not Vince McMahon, because I don't even know if you even know what YouTube or the internet is, but if anyone in WWE is watching this, and we'll probably post it to Twitter afterwards, I'm looking straight into the camera to say this, please, 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 do not make Alexa Bliss and Lily the women's tag team champions, because I have a terrible feeling in the pit of my stomach that is a direction they might head in. Because Alexa Bliss is now, she interviewed the Women's Tag Team Champions. She appeared in the Women's Tag Team Championship match. She cost Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler the match. And Natalya and Tamina look confused by this. I genuinely think, and I'm really worried about this, that Alexa Bliss and a stuffed doll called Lily are going to be the Women's Tag Team Champions. And if that's it, the Women's Tag Team division's over. It's finished. It's done. But I have a real concern about that. They might even get a mini championship they put around. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then I know people will go, that won't happen. Give it time. Give it time. Because it really could. It really could. So next we had Sheamus versus Ricochet. This was a rematch from WrestleMania Backlash, the kickoff show. I hated the angle on the kickoff show last night for WrestleMania Backlash. So obviously they do the same thing tonight. They continue it, right? I so hated it. Because last night, Ricochet loses to Sheamus, and yet after the match, Ricochet steals Sheamus's jacket and hat because he's the babyface and he lost. And they act like Ricochet won the match, but he didn't. He lost. Why is Ricochet celebrating that he lost by stealing someone's clothes? Who's the babyface there? And you look like an idiot. You should be disappointed and frustrated because you lost. Because wins and losses should matter. It shouldn't be like, well, I lost, but I stole the guy's hat, so who's the real winner here? No, not you. You lost. You lost. That's how it works. So Sheamus comes out and he accuses Ricochet of stealing his jacket and hat. And he says, I want you to return my jacket and hat. It's like Bret Hart's jacket in the 90s all over again. So Ricochet's backstage. He does a promo. And he says, I didn't steal Sheamus's jacket and hat. And then he goes to reveal that he did. It was a terrible promo. So he then does an Ernest the Cat Miller reference, which to be fair, kind of, that perked my ears out. That got my attention. I went, oh, that's interesting. I never thought in 2021 we would get an Ernest the Cat Miller reference on Monday Night Raw, but that's where the show has come to at this point. So then Ricochet carries on with a promo and does an Irish accent. Man, Ricochet's promos, the guy is unbelievably talented in the ring. And I understand some people can say, well, it's about the material that the guy's given, and he's not given the best material. But man, his promos suck. They really do suck. I think at this point, can we just acknowledge that Ricochet isn't a very good promo? Because he's not. And don't get me wrong, he's very, very good in the ring. And if WWE really wanted to make money here, they would give Ricochet a mouthpiece, or they would give him a manager, or something like that. Because the guy's incredibly talented, and he's got a great look. And some of the things he's able to do are amazing. And the match he had against Sheamus tonight was very, very good. But man, his promos are bad. They are just bad. Anyway. So they go to the ring, and Ricochet's wearing the hat and the coat and all this kind of stuff. He stole someone's clothes again. And again, I look at this, I go, Ricochet's the babyface here? I sympathize with Sheamus. I don't want people stealing my clothes. Imagine this was real life. And, if this was a high school situation, you doing gym or anything like that, and you go back into the change room and someone stole your jacket and your hat, and then they're running around dancing wearing your jacket and your hat, you'd be like, that guy's an idiot. That guy's not a nice guy. He's a bully. Who's the bully here? I mean, Ricochet. He stole the guy's clothes. Get your own clothes. So they do the match. There was a Spanish fly off the top rope, which was impressive, but it was a nasty landing for Sheamus. Looked like he landed on his knee, but he looked to be fine. And the finish was the talking point here, because the finish obviously was a botch. So Ricochet goes and he hits a springboard off the second rope, and Sheamus hits, it's not a bro kick, it's a knee to the face. And I thought this was the finish because the match ended at WrestleMania Backlash last night with a knee to the face. It was kind of like a V-trigger version of a bro kick. A knee to the face that got the victory last night. So when he hits the springboard and it's a knee to the face, I thought, well, that's the finish. Referee does the count, 1, 2, 3, but Ricochet gets his shoulder up. The referee counted 3. The referee, he counted 3, but Ricochet got his shoulder up. There was obviously a miscommunication there. So they then quickly go to something else. Sheamus hits the bro kick, and that's the 3. That's the finish. It was a very obvious miscommunication. I think the ref thought this was the finish, but Ricochet didn't, even though to me it felt like this was the finish. I think Ricochet kicked out when he wasn't meant to. That's what I kind of felt like. It didn't change anything. Sheamus gets the victory. He gets his jacket back. He gets his hat back. Ricochet loses again, by the way. So coming out of this, people can go, oh, it was an entertaining promo by Ricochet. He showed a bit of charisma, or he showed a bit of character. No, he lost again. Like he lost last night, by the way. Don't pretend that he won. He lost again. Just very stupid. Jan Brown says, gotta love the false advertising by WWE. Almost criminal that they still get over 1 million viewers. They don't deserve even that type of audience if they keep pulling crap like that. Victor Salinas says, Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre, Hell in a Cell match. Special referee will be Kofi Kingston. I think Kingston, like I said, and Xavier Woods are going to be facing RK Bro at Hell in a Cell. So we have a Mace and T-Bar promo backstage. They're still a thing, by the way. They talk about possibly facing Bobby Lashley or answering Bobby Lashley's WWE Championship Open Challenge. They said it as well. The graphics for this show over and over again. Said it was going to be for the WWE Championship. Over and over again, they said this. Even they said that. And then Mace does it. It's as simple as a flip of a coin. Flips a coin, and then says, "Oh, your luck's just about run out." Who do they think they are? Harvey Dent? Were they Two-Face? Because there's two of them. I mean, it's just ripping off a Batman villain. I mean, I wasn't even. I was like, what? When did the coin flip become a thing for them? Is that their new gimmick? Where does the Riddler come in, or the Joker? I mean, I guess we've got the Joker and Bray Wyatt on Raw. I mean, we've got the Scarecrow, I guess, in Riddle. I don't know. I was like, well, this is just a rip off of Harvey Dent. But I mean, to be honest, I liked the idea of all of these superstars saying that they were going to challenge for the WWE Championship or answer Bobby Lashley's WWE Championship Open Challenge. It made it feel like that was it was a big deal, even though they didn't deliver it in the end. But realistically, could you imagine the reaction if they went, right, who's Bobby Lashley's opponent's going to be, and it's Mace or T-Bar? You'd be like, oh, what a letdown that is. So next up, we have Asuka versus Charlotte Flair, and this was probably the best match of the show, actually. It was a lot of fun. It really was. And you have to think of it. This could have been the title match for WrestleMania 37 at one point, too. So there was a nice spot where there was a hip attack from the outside to the apron, which was nice. Rhea Ripley then suddenly comes out because, right, there's got to be some kind of interference or distraction, because how else are we going to have a finish? How else are we going to do that? So Rhea Ripley makes her entrance. They're still doing the piped-in boos for her, so I guess she's a heel. She's still officially a heel. And she sits outside for the whole match. When I was watching this match, my thought process kind of was here that you can say what you will about Charlotte Flair and that she shouldn't be put into all of these... She shouldn't be put into all of these championship situations, and she's overexposed, and Vince McMahon just loves putting titles on her and all that kind of stuff. Say what you will, Charlotte Flair, she is very, very good in the ring, isn't she? She's very, very good at what she does. And looking back on it now, the four horsewomen that came through NXT, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Bayley, at the time, I guess we kind of praised NXT for pushing these female talents and helping create and develop these female talents, but kind of looking back on it, it was just, what a class of talent. I mean, you've got four megastars of female wrestlers, and you realize now that, was that NXT giving them opportunity, or were they just that good? Were they just that special? And it's kind of a bit of both, isn't it? Because, I mean, just like I said, what a class of talent. Really, what a class of talent. Now, Asuka and Charlotte Flair, they really do have great chemistry. And I found it quite telling that they didn't put Rhea Ripley on commentary. Kind of an indication that WWE know, yes, she might not be the best on the mic at the moment. So there was a nice spot where it was a natural selection, but Asuka countered it into a submission. That was great. There was a weird spot where it looked like they were maybe going for a Spanish fly. Charlotte just did a moonsault and landed on her stomach, while Asuka stayed on the top rope, which was a bit odd. Several near falls and false finishes. There was an obvious wardrobe malfunction for Charlotte Flair as well, because the screen went black for a while. I mean, we're talking like 5 seconds, so obviously, and then she was adjusting herself afterwards. So Rhea Ripley then at the end of the match, she gets on the apron. Charlotte Flair gives her a big boot. Charlotte then goes for their figure eight, and Asuka, once again, rolls her up. Because that's what WWE does, right? Got the dreaded roll-up finish. Roll-up? Raw's roll-up? How many roll-ups are we going to get on this show? There was at least 3. Can you come up with a separate finish, please? As opposed to a roll-up. So now for Asuka, that's 2 straight victories over Charlotte Flair. I mean, she had one on Raw, was it last week or the week before that? So Asuka loses at Backlash, but she beats Charlotte Flair, and she's beat her a couple of times now. So I would think maybe next week on Raw we get the WrestleMania rematch, because WWE loves to do their WrestleMania rematches. So I think maybe next week we get Rhea Ripley versus Asuka on Raw for the Raw Women's Championship. On the same show we're going to get a WWE Championship match, probably 2. But I still think the obvious direction here is Flair versus Rhea Ripley. They've got history from last year's WrestleMania. They want to run that back, and they teased it earlier on in the show. This you can kind of see where the story goes, don't you, of all this kind of stuff. In that you can see that the backstage segment earlier on in the show was about Rhea and Charlotte. Had nothing to do with Asuka. So even though Asuka gets the victory here, which is good, the story isn't about her. She got the win, but the story isn't about her at all. She feels like an afterthought, but she won. So she's not completely not being thought about, which is good. We have a John Morrison promo. He talks like he's alive, by the way. He didn't get eaten alive. Now, The Miz wasn't there. He says he's going to dedicate his match to the memory of The Miz, like he did get eaten and he hasn't seen him and he hasn't heard from him. My concern is that this might be a character change from The Miz and maybe turning into a zombie. If that's the case, oh God, terrible. My other feeling might be, though, that he might actually be injured. He did look like he had a real significant knee injury during his match with Damien Priest at WrestleMania Backlash, so I have a feeling that that might be the real reason there. So we have Damien Priest versus John Morrison. This was a lumberjack match. Thank God no zombies. I mean, honestly, thank God there were no zombies. I had a bit of a flashback to WrestleMania Backlash there. I thought, oh no, here we go again. It was great to see Nikki Cross, though. Nikki Cross was out there. She was a lumberjack. She was the only female at ringside, but great that she's back on Monday Night Raw. She's a great talent, deserves way, way better. So it was great to see her back. It was an odd lumberjack match in the sense that the lumberjacks only surrounded 3 sides of the ring. So in the same vein that the lumberjacks are meant to be there to throw you back in the ring, if you went out to the side of the ring where the hard camera was, you wouldn't have been thrown back in because there was nobody there. They obviously ran out of people, which was like, or just, split them up a bit more. Put 2 on each side of the ring or something. Now, the Lumberjacks were Mace, T-Bar, Cedric Alexander, Akira Tozawa, the Viking Raiders, Nikki Cross, Titus O'Neil, Mansoor, Mustafa Ali, Shelton Benjamin, and the Lucha House Party. Nikki Cross threw Morrison into the ring at one point, which was a fun spot. Then a spot where Tozawa was thrown in the ring. And then Morrison looks like he's going to run away from the match by doing parkour. But then this led to him trying to dodge the Lumberjacks and doing parkour, which led him to getting back in the ring, which just made 0 sense. He ran away, but by dodging everyone, ended up back in the ring. How does that work? Very odd. So Mason T-Bar attacked Damien Priest on the outside of the ring, which gave Morrison a chance to get the upper hand on obviously the more dominant Priest, which was smart. That was good psychology. Priest then did his dive over the top rope onto them, which is a nice spot. Cedric Alexander then capitalizes on this craziness and dives onto Shelton Benjamin. This causes a brawl between the Lumberjack. Priest then did a spot where he superplexed John Morrison onto the Lumberjacks at ringside. The only issue here is that nobody really caught John Morrison at all. Whilst everyone caught Damien Priest, it kind of was like the superplex overshot everyone and nobody caught John Morrison, which looked nasty, but he looked to be fine. Priest then hit a Frankensteiner, then hit the lights for the victory. A fun match. Way, way better than the Lumberjack match last night. Not that that's hard because there were no zombies here this time. So post-match interview, Damien Priest says the Miz and Morrison in the past, and he teases challenging Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship tonight because that's what the Open Challenge was for. That's what they promoted for. Now, I liked all of these teases, and hopefully Damien Priest now moves on to what I don't know. I would like maybe to see if Damien Priest isn't going to face Bobby Lashley at Hell in a Cell, which I don't think he is. I would like to see Damien Priest versus Sheamus. I know Sheamus has just won the United States Championship, but I think Priest is the right person maybe to put the United States Championship on now whilst they continue building him to eventually challenge for the WWE Championship. I like that idea. So Damien Priest is money. And they need to capitalize him in now. He's 38 years of age. It's now or never. You've got to build this guy up now. So we have another Eva Marie vignette. She says, growing up, I wanted to be a heroine like Angelina Jolie. I mean, I'm talking about, at least aim for bigger, in terms of standards. She says, now I am. Apparently, but it doesn't matter, though, because she is Angelina Jolie, apparently. She says, I don't want to play one. I want to be one, being a heroine like Angelina Jolie. And she says she wants to be a figure that people can look up to, and I can say that I can be that. Like I said earlier on, for me, it comes across as being a heel. I know some people are saying, is she trying to be an inspirational babyface character? WWE can try all they want to position Eva Marie as a babyface, but fans are going to be returning in a couple of months' time, and when they do, there is no way they cheer Eva Marie. They just don't. They don't cheer Eva Marie in this situation. They boo her. This is the kind of gimmick and kind of character WWE can get away with positioning as a babyface in the Thunderdome because no one's there. They control the crowd reaction inside the Thunderdome. But when it comes to actually having fans in attendance, they will boo her out the building. And there's just no doubt about that. So whilst people are saying, they're positioning her as a babyface, if that is the case, then not happening. Not happening. So we then had a Shelton Benjamin interview backstage. He teased challenging Bobby Lashley, but he was interrupted by Cedric Alexander, who said, I'm not here to fight you, even though he just did fight him like seconds before outside of the ring. He says that Shelton Benjamin, everyone will leave him like they've always done because he always will be worthless. Shelton Benjamin hits him and then leaves. So the Cedric Alexander, Shelton Benjamin saga continues. And finally, we're on to the main event. The main event that they hyped up for 3 hours tonight. 3 hours. They hyped up Bobby Lashley's WWE Championship Open Challenge. They put about 1 million different graphics on the show. During matches, it popped up in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. It said WWE Championship, and all of these superstars challenged Lashley for the WWE Championship. Said, I might answer the challenge. I might challenge for the WWE Championship. So who answered the challenge but the New Day? Out comes Xavier Woods, and he points at Kofi Kingston. So it looks like Kofi Kingston versus Bobby Lashley, WWE Championship. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. Obviously, we saw Kingston compete earlier on in the show, but he's a former WWE champion. I'm not sure he ever got his WWE Championship rematch, because WWE doesn't do that, even though they did a championship rematch on this show. But I'm not sure he ever got the opportunity to compete for the WWE Championship again. So I thought, great. And then I thought, well, obviously they had a segment earlier on in the show. Kofi Kingston beat Randy Orton, so Randy Orton and Riddle will come out and cost him. That will set up the New Day's match with Riddle or RK Bro at Hell in a Cell. I'm thinking this makes sense. Now, I know the problem is with open challenges, and this is funny, I put this in my notes here. Open challenges run the risk of people being let down, because the imagination can run wild, and you're never going to live up to the expectation that you're looking for. But Kofi comes out, and oh, that's a good opponent. I don't have a problem with that. So they set it up, and they do the big ring introductions and all this kind of stuff. But before the referee rings the bell, MVP gets up on the apron. He goes, oh, whoa. I never said it was going to be for the WWE Championship. I just said it was going to be an open challenge. So it's not going to be a WWE Championship match. He says, Kofi Kingston, you're not worthy. It's not for the WWE Championship. That is so lame, and it is false advertising, and it is absolute BS. It is absolute BS. WWE lied to their audience for 3 hours. 3 hours, because for the very first segment of the show, they told their fans, they told their audience, you are going to get a WWE Championship match tonight. Stay tuned in for 3 hours. I know it's a long show, but if you wait till the end, you're going to get a WWE Championship match. That's why you've got to stay tuned in. And they put these graphics up throughout the entirety of the show. WWE Championship Open Challenge. Bobby Lashley's WWE Championship Open Challenge. They promoted it, and they didn't deliver it. False advertising. And they can try and claim of MVP. Well, he never said it, because that's what they did. We came back from the break, and they showed this replay of MVP earlier on in the evening, and they go, look, see, he never said it. We just assumed. No, you didn't assume. You told us. You promoted it. You promoted it out through the entirety of the show. It was going to be for the WWE Championship. You knew exactly what you were doing. You were worried there was going to be a huge dip in the third hour, because there always is. So you tried something to keep people hooked into the end of the show. People stayed hooked into the end of the show. I mean, we don't know. The time will tell when it comes to the ratings tomorrow, but people stayed to the end of the show, and you didn't deliver. And not only didn't you deliver, you lied. You knew exactly what you were doing. And I was surprised some people on social media went, well, this isn't nothing new. It's just good business strategy. No, it's not. How is that good business strategy? You lied. You didn't deliver. That's like going into a restaurant going, by the way, you can stay towards the end. You'll get free dessert. So you pay for this really expensive meal, you're eating your food, you go, I can't wait for this free dessert. And then they go, well, actually, I didn't say free dessert. You're going to have to pay for that. And people would go, well, you lied to me. You didn't deliver what you said you were going to. It's ridiculous. Oh, you're waiting all day for a delivery. They said they're going to be here today between this time and this time, and it gets to the end of the day. Yeah, actually, that's not true. We didn't say that. Look at this. You would say, well, you lied. It's false advertising. And WWE knows exactly what they did. You had to sit through and sift through 3 hours of crap to get to something that you thought was going to be substantial, and then you don't deliver. You don't have the balls to deliver. Why not? And I know people might say, well, they're going to deliver it next week. Kingston won, so it's going to be a WWE Championship next week. Well, maybe it's too late then. Maybe the people that would have stayed in and tuned in for this one don't want to watch next week now. Because they'll go, well, they lied to me once. Why wouldn't they lie to me again? Your credibility is shot. Not that WWE had any credibility when it comes to Monday Night Raw anyway, because it's a bad show. Not that they had any credibility about that, but their credibility, any form of credibility that they would have had, disappeared. It's gone. Because you lied to your audience again. And I know I shouldn't be so offended that WWE did this, because they do it all the time. But it's just, maybe shame on me. Maybe shame on me as a viewer that I actually believed that we were going to see something that they advertised. You can say MVP said, oh, I never said it, but WWE, you promoted it. You promoted it throughout the whole show, not just in the opening segment. It's not a case of they said it in the opening segment and then they never advertised it or they never promoted it. They promoted it throughout the entire show. Coming up later on in the show, Bobby Lashley WWE Championship Open Challenge. Put the graphic up bottom right-hand corner, WWE Championship Open Challenge. They had the superstars say, I'm going to challenge Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship tonight. BS. You lied. And if they get angry that people call them out on it, well, they should. Because you need to be held accountable if you lie. It was ridiculous. Anything to keep people watching, right? Anything to pop a rating or keep those rating ups. I'm surprised we didn't have the legends come out, because that's what they always do to pop a rating. This week, they just resorted to lying. Where's your credibility? It's in the toilet. So we get to the closing moments of the match, and Lashley's got Xavier Woods on his shoulders on the outside, and Xavier Woods pulls Kofi Kingston off of Lashley's shoulders. The referee's then distracted with Xavier Woods. He's sending Woods to the back. He's distracted. MVP is going to hit Kofi Kingston with his cane that he carries with him. Suddenly, Drew McIntyre appears out of nowhere, pulls the cane away, and Kofi Kingston rolls up again. How many rolls up on this show? Honestly, 3, 4, or 5 different roll-ups on this show. That was the finish of the night, a roll-up finish, and Kofi Kingston pins Bobby Lashley. Now, obviously, this is setting up a WWE Championship match, I would assume, next week, because I don't think Kofi's going to be facing Lashley at Hell in a Cell. I think that's still going to be Drew McIntyre. Like I said, at this point, I was just frustrated about the whole WWE Championship thing, because it was a lie. And, you know, again, shame on us for staying so long and being lied to the whole time. That frustrated me a lot. I really don't like seeing Bobby Lashley getting pinned on Raw. No disrespect to Kofi Kingston, but not that Bobby Lashley should be booked like Brock Lesnar or anything like that, but come on. You wouldn't do that to Roman Reigns on SmackDown. You wouldn't have Roman Reigns get rolled up on SmackDown. You just wouldn't. There is no difference between Reigns and Bobby Lashley. They are the world champions of each show. They're the top heels on their brand. Bobby Lashley shouldn't be getting rolled up by anyone. And I know people could say, well, it's not really like he got pinned clean in the ring. It's not a case of like his shoulders pinned down and it was decisively in the middle. He got rolled up. The WWE champion shouldn't be doing jobs. He shouldn't be getting rolled up. If, you know, you've done DQ finishes a million times throughout this show and all of these stupid finishes, if there was ever a match that warranted a DQ finish, it would be this. But obviously they're setting up a future WWE Championship match. I don't know. Like I said, I just hated that it was that we were lied to. And in the grand scheme of things, like I said at the start of the stream, it wasn't a bad Raw. It wasn't a bad Raw. As Raws go, it was all right. But it still didn't make it a good show. A bad Raw is the equivalent to, I don't know, going outside and it not being raining, but it still being freezing cold and getting frostbite. You're still not happy. You're still freezing. It's never a good show, but in the grand scheme of things, I guess it was okay. But look, guys, what are your opinions on Monday Night Raw tonight? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, this is just one man's opinion. So thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. Be sure to smash a like on the like button too. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this stream today. And I'll speak to you again very